Into our last video, we have seen how we can capture a snapshot of a disk. Now here in this video, I am going to show you how you can create a new virtual machine and restore the data which you have snapshot or the machine which you have snapshot. So here we are going to begin with a create a virtual machine from the snapshot disk. So for that, let's move to the portal. So we are on our portal now, but I'll not be using the portal to create your VM using the snapshot disk which we have created. So we know we have created two different snapshot disks. One is your OS snapshot disk we have created, and one we have created as a disk snapshot. So just have a look on it. Here we'll move into your resource group. I'll move into RG3, and here you can find both the snapshot disk. Once it is loaded, you can see this is a data snapshot disk and this is your OS snapshot disk. Here I'm going to use my OS snapshot disk because I'll be creating a virtual machine using this snapshot disk. So for that, let us move to your portal here. I'm going to move to your PowerShell. Into PowerShell, what we need to do is very first I'm going to collect some information. First I'll get login, otherwise I'll find a problem during I'm going to create the account. Now I have logged in so that it is easy for me, otherwise in future I would have got stuck. Okay, fine. I'll clear out the screen. So starting with your collecting the data, I'm going to collect the operating system or the snapshot which we have taken. So I'll take the name of this particular snapshot and I'm going to keep it into variable with name snapshot name, and I'm going to define the snapshot name as OS snapshot 1. Okay, I've just saved it. And the next thing which we need to collect is your virtual network which we are going to use, and also I'm going to define the name of my OS disk which I'm going to use, like as I know what the practical which we are going to show is like where I'm going to use this snapshot disk and I'm going to create the virtual machine. So the virtual machine which I'll be creating, it will be containing one copy of this disk, and the operating system which we have into this particular disk will be copied into that particular disk and you will be able to run the operating system. So the disk which will be created as a copy of this disk should also contain some name. So here I'm going to define the name of that disk which will be copied, or replica of the snapshot disk, and here I'm going to name it as OS disk 1. Okay, so this is the original snapshot disk and this is the copy of our snapshot disk which will be created for our virtual machine, and I'm going to attach this disk to my virtual machine. So the next what we need to collect the information is your VNet. Okay, so virtual network. I'm going to use my existing virtual network, that is my virtual network 3, and then I'm going to define the VM name. So the new VM which I'm going to create, I'll define the name. So I'll just maximize it because everything I'm going to do over here itself. So this is the VM name I'm going to define as VM4. Hit enter, and then we are going to define the VM size. VM size I'm going to define with basic A0. Okay, hit enter, and then I'm going to define this snapshot configuration. So I'm going to define the snapshot and I'm going to get the entries of my snapshot by using get Azure. So this is the disk information I require for my snapshot disk. So Azure RM snapshot. Okay, and the resource group where I have set my snapshot, so it was in RG3, and then I'm going to define the snapshot name which I'm going to create by using the snapshot will be snapshot name. So this is the name which we have defined. I'm just using this name here. Hit enter. So it will collect the information of the snapshot disk, whether it is created, and if it find any error, you will be prompted with an error over here. So everything is fine as of now. Now I'm going to create a disk configuration here, where I'll be creating a new disk account type, and then we are going to define the type of your account. It can be a storage type we generally have. So right now we have the storage type as our standards, or either if you want to select the standard as well, you can. So there is no such kind of thing. So whatever generally you require. So I'm just going to use the same which generally our the snapshot disk has. So I'm just going to define it as storage type. So to avoid the errors, like sometime it happens, like when you have set your disk, and if suppose unfortunately you have selected the different disk again, you will be facing the problem. So in spite, I'm going to change or take the same configuration what my existing disk has. Same with the location, again I'm going to take in some such a way itself a snapshot which we have created, and I'm going to take the location of the same snapshot disk which we have. So I'll make it as snapshot location, whatever you have, and then we are going to define the source of your resource ID. So here again I'm going to define snapshot dot ID. Hence I've collected the information into snapshot here, and then I'm going to create the disk with an option that I'll show that whether it is to be attached, it is to be empty disk, you need to use it from any particular image. If you have, you need to import it or you need to make a copy. So as of now we are copying this disk, so I'll take it as copy. Same way, hit enter. So it will collect all the information about the disk. It will collect the information of your location of your disk, your ID of this particular disk, and here I'm going to create the disk. So I'm going to create a disk as disk equals to, I'm going to create a new Azure RM disk. Okay, and I'm going to create a disk from the name or the configuration which I'm going to use is your disk. I will define the disk configuration. So disk, and here I'm going to attach the configuration that is we have created, disk config. Okay, and then I'm going to define the disk name as well. We can define here into your RG names. First of all, I'll define the resource group name. So resource group name will be RG4. This is a new resource group I have created, and then I'm going to define the disk name here. So disk name is the disk name which we have defined, that is OS disk name. So OS disk name I'll take. Hit enter. If everything is fine, it will start creating your disk, and if it is taking time, ensure that you can be free, can be sit idle, because it will be creating a disk. If you have any kind of error, on the spot it will prompt you for the error. So right now it is creating your disk, and just let us move to your portal and have a look whether it is getting created or not. So I'll just move into my resource groups, RG4, and you can see here it's creating the disk with name OS disk 1, and it has been created, right? And when you move into your OS disk 1, if you want to graphically create your virtual machine directly from here, you can add the virtual machine, or you can export this disk. If you add the virtual machine, it will ask you for your machine configuration, your virtual machine configuration, and you can create the disk. Or if you want to create it from your PowerShell, so as we know it is a very long process into your PowerShell, but still I'll be using the PowerShell to create the disk, so that I'll show you how you can attach this disk, this existing disk, to your PowerShell. So let us begin with our PowerShell, and if you want to use for your own use and you reduce the time, and you are facing difficulties to use the PowerShell, so you can directly click on create virtual machine, and you can add this virtual machine where this disk will be automatically attached. You can see you don't have any option to select the disk here, right? So depending upon how you require, you can use. I'm going to show you by using your PowerShell here. So I'll move back to my PowerShell. So very first I'll configure my virtual machine configuration. So for that we will provide a virtual configuration. So either VM config or VC we define here. That is a virtual configuration. So I'm going to create a new Azure RM config rm VM config. Okay, so here, so sorry, I'll define it. I'll just maximize it because it's a rm VM config. Okay, and then I'm going to define the VM name. So we have already defined our VM name as, just let us check, we do have VM name, okay, VM4. So new Azure RM VM config hyphen name. So we'll have a VM name, and then I'm going to define my VM size. So already we have defined the VM size here, VM size. Okay, and then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now I'm going to add a disk, to this particular VM. So for that, I'm going to use VC, where I'm going to attach the disk which we have created. So set Azure RM VM OS disk. Okay, from the VM which I'm going to create, that will be through your configuration we have added into your virtual configuration, and then I'm going to manage the disk. So we'll be managing the disk from the disk.id. Okay, and then I'm going to create option. So here I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the disk, right? Attach the disk, and the operating system we have, that is your Windows. If you have Linux, you need to define Linux. If you have Windows, you need to define Windows. I'll be using Windows because the machine was Windows machine. And next, what we need to do is we need to assign the public IP address for our system. So I'm just going to use the public IP address. I'm going to create a new public IP for this. So rmvm public IP, okay, rm public IP address I'm going to create, and the name of the public IP I'm going to define as public IP2. IP4 I can define. Okay, and then I'm going to define the resource group name. So resource group name I'll be defining as RG4 itself. And then I need to define the location. So the location, again, I'll be defining as per the snapshot we have created. So I'll define it as a snapshot dot location. Okay, once we've done that, we will define the allocation method. So allocation method here is again the dynamic, so I don't want to define a static. Automatically it will fetch the IP address, and let's check our PIP is getting created into your resource group 4. Just I'll scroll up. This is your resource group 4. I'll just move and check for the public IP has been created or not. So you can see it has been created. So we are just collecting and creating the components for our new virtual machine, which will be added together for our virtual machine. So here we'll add a VNet information now. VNet, and then I'm going to add to get the information from our existing VNet information, which we have already created into our previous previous lectures. So I'm going to add my VNet 3 itself. So I'm going to define the name as per the VNet we have already defined. Okay, and then resource group I'm going to define resource group name as RG4 and hit enter. Okay, let us check. Okay, VNet name, I think we need to have a VNet name. So there is no VNet name. Okay, fine. I'm going to define such a way. Here I'll directly define the VNet 3 at enter. Okay, so VNet 3 is an RG3. I'm so sorry. It is an RG3. It will fetch the information about your VNet which we have created. That is VNet 3, which was located into your RG3. And what next we need to do is we need to create an NIC. So I'm going to create an NIC here with name NIC4. And here I'm going to define new Azure RM network interface. I'm going to define, and the name of the network interface will be NIC4. And then resource group I'm going to define resource group name as RG4 itself, where I'm going to locate it, and the location will be again the snapshot we have defined, snapshot.location. So it should be the same location where you have created a snapshot. And then I'm going to define this subnet ID. So subnet ID, I'll define it as the network which we have defined. So I'm going to define the VNet, and the VNet which we have defined, let us check, like we have defined the name as VNet itself. Okay, so VNet dot, we are going to define this subnet. Subnets, into subnets I have to define the array as starting array 0.id, and then I'll be defining the public IP address as well. So public.ip, also we have created a PIP. There is our public IP, and I'm going to fetch the ID from here. So once you have done with it, it will create your virtual machines NIC here. Let us check. Our NIC has been created. Now what next? Now I have already created the NIC, I have already created the disk, and we also have the public IP address, which is again attached to your NIC. Now if you find the NIC information, like if I want to find NIC information, I can give NIC4. You can see here you get all the information about the NIC, and here again you will be able to get the public IP address. So this will be the public IP which I'll be getting here. So let us let us attach this NIC information into our VC. So for that, again, I'll add this information by giving command add Azure RM VM and RM VM network interface, and that I'm going to add into your virtual machine, that is virtual machine information, that is VC ID and IC4.id. Hit enter. We have added this information completely. Let us check into VC. What do we have? Okay, we also have network interface, OS, size, and VM4. Now we need to create our virtual machine. So how we'll be creating our virtual machine is, we have already seen, we will just create our virtual machine by using the VC configuration here. So for that, I'll give the command new Azure RM VM, which I'm going to create with a VM name with a configuration VC, and here I'm going to define the resource group name where I want to create this machine. So I'm going to create it into RG4, and the location I'm going to create in the location I will be creating what the snapshot location is. So I'll just define the snapshot dot location. Hit enter, and it will start creating your virtual machine here. Okay, so it was a problem regarding the port generally we have. Let us check first the virtual machine has been created or not. This is refresh it. Cannot it. Let us check over here. So I just used the location over here itself. It was not containing the location from there. Let us check. So into our browser, we should get the information about this machine. You can find VM4 is getting created. Can open our VM4. So if I move into the disks, you can see here you got the disk with name OS disk 1, means I'm using the same disk which I have created, and we'll wait for a while till it's getting completely created and running. So I'll be able to connect this machine, and we will be able to get the same operating system which we had into our previous one, of which we have taken the snapshot. So we will wait till it's getting completed and it is up and running. So here you can find now it is running, and now I'm going to connect this machine here. Connecting my VM4. Connected. And if you remember, I haven't provided any username and password for this machine. Still, I'll be using the old username and password. So it is connecting. We'll wait till it's getting connected successfully. And here it is asking you for the certificates. Done with it, and then it is going to open your desktop and where you can work. So this is a snapshot copy of our existing virtual machine, that is VM3. So the configuration of VM3 and VM4, or we can say the operating system configuration, we can say the configuration you might have done for your DNS, DHCP, or any kind of configuration. If you have done, you get everything over here. But only the point is that when you have captured that particular virtual machine, that time only you will be able to get the snapshot disk of it. So it is taking a little time to connect. We'll be back once it is connected. So you can find here my machine is up and running and I'm connected to it. This is my virtual machine. I can use the same operating system which I have used into my previous one. And again, we can move into your command line. So this is your test user one. I haven't provided this name anywhere, right? And the same thing, I'll check for my host name. This is a new host which I have created, but still the host name is VM3 because we have taken the complete configuration of your VM3 to VM4. So for here, we need to change the name of the VM3 to VM4, right? So this is an example what the configuration kind of things, whatever the configuration you generally do over here, you'll get it over here. So right, so this is how we have seen our VM4. We have connected, you can see here, public IP is 75. This is your virtual machine 4, but still the name of the virtual machine is VM3 inside because the configuration what we have done into your VM3, we have taken the snapshot of that machine and we are getting this information into this particular machine, right? So this is the benefit of using the snapshot disk. In case for any reason your VM3 was not working fine, so you can create this kind of snapshot on regular basis, kind of at least for 10 to 15 days. After 10-15 days, if you get a new snapshot, delete the older one, so that whenever you create a snapshot you get all the updated things. And if suddenly any kind of clashes happen, or within your services, or any kind of crash happens into your operating system or your virtual machine or server you have connected, you'll be able to get your ready configured servers from this snapshot. So this is what we have seen into this particular video. Into next video I'm coming up where I'm going to discuss the new marketplace of your Azure, and we'll see how we can use that into our next video.